Welcome, everybody, to Be Well Informed. Might change it to the specifics. We'll see how that goes, but probably not, because I don't really feel like doing that right now, at least. But anyways, today we're talking about the direct path versus the progressive path, because I'm bored and I want to talk about something. And I want to talk about the pros and cons of both from my personal experience. I could be wrong. Just make sure you understand that before we start here. So, there's basically two basic paths in spirituality, or self development, or whatever you want to call it. There's the traditional progressive path, and then there's the kind of neo. It's not really neo, but it is. It's more known nowadays than it was back in the day, but more neo-modernist direct path. And I think both of these are actually really useful. Some would advocate more for the direct path, and some more for the progressive. But I think both have their uses. So, what are these two paths, and what do they look like exactly? So, the progressive path, which is a little bit easier to go into, it basically has the philosophy, the idea that says, I need to grow as a spiritual person, and these are the ways that I must grow. Like meditation is helpful for improving one's awareness, gradually leading to enlightenment and to the no self, or to the true self, or whatever you want to call it. The Atman, or the whatever you want to call it. Brahma, there's all kinds of names for it, but and the progressive path has steps. The direct path is more direct, I guess. That's why it's called the direct path, because it pretty much involves no steps. And you enter the source directly, automatically, and at first, once you start. So what is the pros and cons of each? In my opinion, the direct path, or the thing is, if you're a beginner, the direct path might not actually be the best thing for you, for a couple of reasons. So sometimes, in order to really understand what you're dealing with, what you're trying to find, you have to find it. You have to know what it is. Whether that be through theoretical knowledge or through experiential knowledge, you have to know basically what it is. And with the direct path, you can get teachers that tell you this, but when you're practicing or experiencing the direct path, there is no way of knowing for absolute certainty whether you're succeeding or failing, because it may seem very much like nothing special is happening. This is based on my experience, right? So, if you try and find a thinker, for instance, you may start this practice of whatever it is, the direct path, and you might not know what you're looking for. But with the progressive path, there is instruction, there is knowledge, direct knowledge, and sort of indirect knowledge, I guess you could call it. because what you're looking for isn't actually a thing, and you can't really look for it. But you don't necessarily know that at first. And so the progressive path is probably the best path for beginners at first. But the more that you look into this stuff, and the more that you realize what this no thing is, the more the direct path can be useful for you in that situation. So, pros of each pro of progressive path is that you don't really need knowledge of the no self for the most part. Like you it may benefit you to know some of these things, but like for the most part, you may not need to know that for the most part, because you're not going to know it. You're not going to be able to know it anyways, experientially, and so you're going to be using the progressive path to grow, to learn, and finally find this no self, this true self, whatever you want to call this. And the con is it takes time. It takes a lot of time. It may take you years, maybe even decades if you're, being distracted by other things and whatnot. Perhaps even decades anyways, depending on how, attuned you are to the spiritual, and if you have any spiritual gifts and things like this. The other pro is that in some ways with the progressive path, you get more knowledge, you get more understanding of what this is. But because of that, you get the con can be that you can get so much of this knowledge that you focus more on the knowledge than the attaining of the no self itself. So, pros of the direct path is it's direct, it's fast, it's quick. But like I said, the con is you may not realize that you're doing anything, because there really is no doing. You may not realize that you're entering whatever this is. It's kind of like if you did something, but you had no awareness of doing so. Say for instance, like if we were born without awareness, and we did things all our lives. If we did those things, could we be aware of them if there was no awareness? If there's no awareness in the answer is no, we couldn't. We couldn't become aware of it. And so in the same ways, it's kind of true in this case, because the progressive path, or the direct path requires a little bit of awareness of what it is that you're looking at. At least in my case, I had to look at a lot of theory and things like this to understand what this means. It doesn't mean that I have entered some kind of enlightened state or anything, but I know what it is and what it isn't. Really, it's almost more about like knowing what it isn't, honestly, because knowing what it is not really something you can do, but you may not realize that at first, and you may try and find out what it is by knowing what it is. And so you'll read phrases like emptiness and nothingness, and you'll think that's what it means, when it's actually more about what it isn't than what it is. Which is why the nutty method is really useful for these kinds of things. So the pros of the direct path are: it takes no time. It helps. It takes no theory. It's quick. It's practical. In some ways, it's more practical than the progressive path, because the progressive path takes a lot of time and effort to achieve whatever it is, depending on how stringent your progressive path is as well. 31 p.m. Record. And so the progressive path has the tendency to kind of like, one of the cons of the progressive path is that you can get lost in details in the knowledge, and it can you can get distracted by other things, way too easily. With the direct path, if you get distracted, you can return back into the I or the I am or whatever you want to call it really quickly and really easily. So I think I'm going to do more videos on the direct path because everybody knows about the progressive path for the most part. And I might make episodes on the progressive path as well. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I was hoping to make it shorter, but anyways, I'll talk to you in the next one.